Tonight on News 5 Live, Senate to ratify new UN convention on Thursday. PM Briceño explains why. Commission of inquiry appointed to look into the fire sale of government assets. Prime Minister says Amlin Mendez is not his CEO. And a Cayo family is still struggling to recover after a dump truck crashes into their house. Details of these stories and more coming up in tonight's newscast.
It's a fact that you can access unlimited service.
Good evening. Welcome to News 5 Live for Tuesday, January 26th. I am Marlene Cuellar. The Cabinet met today for well over 6 hours, and one of the topics of discussion in the meeting was the ratification of the UN Convention on the Recognition and Enforcement of Foreign Arbitral Awards. It has been in our laws since 1980, but on Thursday the Senate is expected to ratify the convention. After today's meeting, we asked Briceño about the government decision.
What we have done, we have made our research that to ensure that that will not happen, and we've been assured that that will not happen. That is being done simply because there are some other negotiations that we're doing coming forward that we will need that so that it can happen.
So can you give us examples? Because of course there are arbitral awards that are outstanding for payment to Ashcroft.
I will repeat again that this this convention that we want to have accepted or to pass in the Senate, to be ratified in the Senate, will have absolutely nothing to previous awards that have been passed against the government of Belize. We've been very careful, and we got legal advice to ensure that that cannot happen, and we've been assured that that cannot happen. There's no nefarious plan right here, nothing that we're trying to pass under the rug to be able to pay anybody. We are doing some delicate negotiations with the issues of some of the debt that we have. And to be able to address that, then we need to pass this UN convention so that we can be able to proceed. But we have been very, very careful, and we have been assured that this cannot then be used by any other person who have any other case against the government of Belize of monies owed to them to be able to collect.
So from the legal advice that you have received, what prevents person like Lord Ashcroft or other arbitral awards be paid when this thing is ratified?
What will prevent them is that it's not applicable to them, period, full stop, punto final.
But that's a UN convention. Will legislation be passed to say this won't be applicable to outstanding arbitral awards to the Ashcroft Group?
But as far as I understand, we don't need any legislation to do that. The convention already takes care of that. So there's no need to pass any legislation.
The Ashcroft Group or Lord Michael himself has not approached the government for this money to be paid. You're talking about negotiations happening.
No, there's not. This has nothing to do with Michael Ashcroft, man. Please, man.
So
Can I repeat it again? Can I repeat it again? Can I repeat it again? It has nothing to do with Michael Ashcroft, period. Okay? Nothing. And he has not come to us to try to pass anything so that he could collect his money. So please,
However, Prime Minister, do you understand the concern or the fear from the public? Because his name is being tied to this, maybe wrongly as you say, but do you understand the concern from the public?
To be having to pay out so much money, hundreds of millions in a time of a pandemic.
Of course, everybody understands. We are concerned, and we are not going to be able to pay anything that of things that were caused by the Barrow administration. Let us start with that. And secondly, we have had no such discussions with anybody. As I said, this has nothing to do with Mr. Ashcroft or any of his companies. I'm not trying to play on words. That was the former Prime Minister. I speak plain English.
The UN Convention was adopted by a United Nations diplomatic conference on June 10, 1958, and entered into force on June 7, 1959. The Convention's objective is to require courts of contracting states to give effect to private agreements to arbitrate and to recognize and enforce arbitration awards made in other states. The Prime Minister also responded to questions about the Public Service Commission. Like the chairman of the Elections and Boundaries Commission, Esteban Pereira, the Public Service Commission members refused to resign. Even though it is known as a politically appointed body, when there is a government change, the commission members would usually leave, but they are reportedly refusing to step down. PM Brisenia says that they need to resign now.
They should have resigned from the 12th of November, and they haven't as yet. They need to understand that there's a new government. And as a new government, it has been the practice from independence that when a new government comes in, everybody resigns. And so I am very disappointed that they have not resigned as yet, and I hope that that can be addressed very soon.
The disposal of public assets, including vehicles, office furniture, and electronic equipment just ahead of the November 2020 general elections will be investigated. The Public Service Union roundly criticized the fire sale of the property of the government of Belize. Earlier today, the Office of the Prime Minister announced the signing of an order to commence a commission of inquiry into the matter. Members of the commission are Chairman Andrew Marshallek, Luke Martinez on behalf of the Public Service Union, and Marcelo Blake representing the Belize Chamber of Commerce and Industry. The investigation will look at the procedures and processes for the sale of assets by the previous administration to determine whether procedures and processes were duly followed. According to Prime Minister John Brisenia, persons will be held responsible should there be any instances of fraud, corruption, or mismanagement.
As you know that there was this fire sale of vehicles before the elections and a number of other assets, and so the cabinet felt it was best that we set up a commission, which will include not only from within the government, but also the public service, or the public service union, and the private sector through the chamber for them to be able to have a full investigation as to see what happened. Once we got into government, we've noticed that most of the good vehicles were sold, and they were sold at some very cheap prices. And so we need to find out what's happening, and if we can hold anybody responsible, and if the possibility exists that we can take back some of these vehicles, then we will do so. As you noticed, we only bought probably about 5, maybe 6 vehicles from Minister Secretary None. And speaking for myself, I'm still using my own private vehicle because we don't have the resources at this time, and we have other priorities more than vehicles. And so that is why we felt it was important to set up this commission.
18 new cases of COVID-19 were recorded today, putting the total number of confirmed cases to 11,788. There were also 56 new recoveries and 308 active cases. The good news is that there were no new deaths reported, leaving the fatality count at 293. The numbers have been decreasing, and Prime Minister John Briceño says it's all thanks to science. Briceño acknowledges the tough balancing act to flatten the curve and boost the economy, which is why new regulations aimed at relaxing some of the restrictions will be announced on Wednesday.
I know the issue of COVID, where the infection rate was over 5,000, and right now it is under 400, under 500, and we must give credit to the minister and his technical team. As we said, we're going to follow the science, and that's exactly what we've been doing. We've been following the science and doing everything to control the spread of COVID. Now more than ever, we have to be able now to walk that thin line between controlling COVID, but at the same time addressing the issues of the economy, where people need to work. And that is why tomorrow the minister will be announcing the loosening of some of the restrictions. Not removing all the restrictions, but loosening some of the restrictions so that people can work and move a bit more freer than right now.
Would you like to see the ban on inter-district travel in Orange Rock and Corozal lifted?
That will be lifted.
The American tourist who the police arrested for mask violations in Caye Caulker opened up about her ordeal. While there were concerns that her experience could cause a black eye for Belize as the country scrambles to attract tourists during the pandemic, the woman says that she promises to revisit Belize despite the shock of what happened. As we told you on Monday, the woman was arrested because she wasn't wearing a mask in public. Her justification to the cop who arrested her was that she was eating. The incident was captured on video and widely shared across social media. Area Representative for Belize Rural South Andre Perez heard those concerns from his constituents, and he met with the visitor to check how she was doing. News 5's Andrea Polanco reports.
The American tourist, who was arrested and subsequently released for not wearing a face mask in public on the island of Caye Caulker, says that she'll be back. The woman, whose name is Cher Urbina, says she's grateful for the outpouring of support and that while she was shocked by the interactions with the police on Saturday, she claims that she's still very much interested in exploring investment opportunities in Belize, saying that this will not be her last trip.
Though my husband, brother, and I were very shocked by what transpired, I wanted to reassure all that we are still committed to exploring investment opportunities here in the country and forming new and stronger bonds with the people of Belize. As I conclude my first trip to Belize, I'm sure it won't be the last, and I pray for the speedy recovery of our economy as we strive to return to normal.
But what helped to turn this negative experience right around? According to Urbina, she has felt the warmth and support from the public and the tourism industry stakeholders. Added to that, she welcomed the visit by Area Representative for Belize Rural South, Andre Perez.
I wanted to take a moment and thank you all, especially the people of Caye Caulker and of San Pedro, for the generous outpouring of support and kindness after the events that occurred on Saturday. I want to extend a special thanks to the people of the Ahi Resort for their tireless and ardent advocacy, and to the Ministerial Cabinet for personally reaching out to listen to and assuage our concerns and to make sure we knew that the people of Belize are in our corner and have already begun making improvements to ensure that these events don't repeat.
And that's what Minister Andre Perez hopes, that tourists and law enforcers won't have any more of this kind of interaction that blows up online. so Paris reached out to Urbina the day after the incident happened to extend apologies. He says that the meeting was cordial and he's happy that the issue was ironed out.
Basically, it was a very cordial discussion, and I must admit the lady was very calm, understanding, and I really respect how she really conducted herself, that she was able to look at the bigger picture. She seemed to have weighed out her experience of Belize and not taking this unfortunate incident that occurred to her as to kind of damage her entire experience of what she was. She spoke well of Belize. She spoke well of the people all around her that she met with, wherever she went. And she was very grateful to the resort as well. The staff was wonderful. And she was appreciative of that. And in fact, she was also came in as well on the looking at opportunities in buying properties to perhaps come back there for business or retirement. She mentioned that to me. And so other than that, she was very gracious, and actually she was grateful that I went here, and I went here to represent the government of Belize, and actually on instructions of the Prime Minister as well, to express her apologies for whatever happened there. Any negative videos there is always affecting us and such, no? But I tell you what, the lady was very gracious that she opted to make that recording. We did not coerce or ask her. She said she was going to do a video because she was so appreciative of how we reacted, of how we treated her. And we presented her that there is much more goodness in Belize. So that's another thing that we're asking for our people, that I know they're sharing it, but not to condemn anybody, because we are a free country. We are free to release anything that we want. But I think at this point it highlights, sometimes we have to be responsible, although we need to bring to light certain things that are not right. But we must weigh out the consequences sometimes that can lead to us. So it does cause a black eye.
Reporting for News 5, I'm Andrea Polanco.
While the backlash from a possible bad review after the viral video is less of a concern, the tourism sector is bracing for the impact of the new travel regulations being implemented in the United States. On Friday, a comprehensive strategy was issued by the U.S. government of the changing quarantine regulations whenever a citizen or tourist visits that country. The new travel regulations speak to returning citizens taking a COVID-19 test before boarding a plane. Upon arrival in the U.S., they must undergo a mandatory 7 days of quarantine, which is in line with CDC guidelines. Airlines are also not allowed to board passengers who cannot produce a negative PCR or rapid antigen test. Today, News 5 spoke with U.S. Chargé d'Affaires Keith Gilgis, who broke down the reasoning behind the decision, as that country has recorded over 400,000 COVID-19 deaths.
We've now surpassed the 400,000 mark for the number of deaths. And to put that in contrast, that is roughly the population of Belize. That's the number of people that have died. A little more scary than that is we only hit 300,000 in December. And so to have already hit 400,000, we are likely to hit 500,000 sometime in February. So averaging 3,000 deaths per day, there was a need to do something and to take strong action. So what the Biden administration has done is put together a comprehensive strategy. And I get that there are parts of that strategy that are tough, particularly when you're trying to balance the effort to increase economic development, to increase tourism that's so important to Belize. But at the same time, for the U.S., we have to be looking at the public health implications. So the administration released a comprehensive strategy. One part of that was to say, frankly, don't travel. And that was the guidance. You shouldn't travel unless it's entirely necessary. If you're going to travel, then when you come to re-enter the United States, you will need to take a COVID test and show that you're negative before you board a plane. It's a little bit different than Belize is doing, in that Belize lets you board the plane, then you come down, and then you either show a test or get tested. And so in many ways, that's no different. Now, the part about quarantining, that is guidance. Those are recommendations. The CDC recommends that you get tested before you travel.
When we come back, we'll have an update on the Cayo family left homeless after a truck crashed into their house.
Hello, friends. This is Dr. Bob Roberts with another 60-second sermon.
The Briceño administration has yet to finalize its list of diplomatic postings. In fact, for weeks, we've been receiving reports that individuals sent on diplomatic missions at Belizean embassy overseas were refusing to return home, delaying the government's plan in appointing new ambassadors and other diplomats. Today, PM Briceño says that the announcement of new ambassadors will be made shortly.
When it comes to foreign postings, everybody knows that the ambassadors work during the term of their government, and that when the time comes that they need to come home. I am told, I don't know, that a few of them did not want to come back home. But I think finally, the ministry had to tell them, you have to come back home. You are no longer employed by the government of Belize.
Can you confirm that Dr. Candice Pitts will be the ambassador to Taiwan?
Well, we're going to be making the announcement very shortly, and of all of them together. Once we settle, we're going to make all of them as one group, so that then you can look. But we're looking at very good candidates to be able to that will be able to represent us very well abroad.
The Prime Minister was also asked about Amlin Mendez. In a press release dated December 4th, the Briceño administration announced Mendez's appointment as Chief Executive Officer in the Ministry of Economic Development. The release stated that as CEO, Mendez would support the Prime Minister's efforts, who is the substantive minister. But news of her appointment raised eyebrows because Mendez is an ardent UDP supporter who served the now leader of the opposition, Patrick Faber, when he was in office. In fact, according to Faber, Mendez called him seeking advice if she should take up the position. However, Mendez's term as CEO was short-lived because, as PM Briceño told the media today, he has no CEO in the Ministry of Economic Development.
We don't have a CEO right now for the Ministry of Economic Development.
She hasn't been kept, so someone is being sought.
I'm sorry?
Someone is being sought.
Sorry?
She was never appointed.
No, she was not appointed. An offer was made, yes.
The fate of the food assistance program inherited by the Briceño administration beyond the current fiscal year remains uncertain. Monies have been set aside to continue with the initiative until the end of March. However, allocations for the program in the coming financial year remain doubtful since the government finds itself in a disastrous financial predicament. The public purse is virtually empty. And that's the state in which the new administration says they found it when they took over in November of last year. According to Minister of Human Development Dolores Balderramas Garcia, blame for the excessive spending of public funds lies squarely at the previous government's feet.
Of course, it is something we will have to review, but I can't speak for what will happen in the new fiscal year. Of course, we want to continue helping our people, and we must continue to help the poorest of the poor. However, I do want to say that perhaps enough emphasis has not been placed before on the dire straits that the UDP government left this program in before we took over. They pretty much dried out the entire budget with wild spending, cronyism, corruption, you name it. And I shouldn't be here today having to remind you of that, but it seems that it is so necessary. Because it seems to me that they have the face of brass now to be talking about X amount of persons we're getting and now it's being cut down. Well, you can't spend what you don't have. And if they are having the audacity now to talk to us about this program and, in the past the people were getting X amount and now it's not the case, I will have to put the blame squarely where it belongs. The previous government, because of their corruption and because of their wild spending before November 11th, left us in the situation that we are in. But I assure you, let me not say that we're backing down from any difficult question or anything. I assure you that we will continue the program up until the end of March, and we are looking very closely at how we're going to continue it.
Gregory Chuck is the Commissioner of Indigenous Peoples Affairs. Today, the Ministry of Human Development, Families and Indigenous Peoples Affairs announced Chuck's appointment. A press release from the ministry says that Chuck is, quote, well qualified and has over 2 decades of experience working with Indigenous people at the local and international level. His scope of work includes addressing the unique needs of Indigenous peoples and leading the implementation of the Caribbean Court of Justice Consent Order of 2015, unquote. Chuck is an attorney at law, and he is also the former executive director of SATIM. A mother of two young boys from San Ignacio turned to News 5 once again to share the story of what can only be described as a series of unfortunate events. On December 6th, a dump truck ran off the street and through Goody Shish's home while she and her kids were inside. Everything was destroyed, including all her household items. Since then, Shish and her children have been staying in an apartment. But the family is struggling to find the rent due within the next few days. There's been no word from the insurance company handling the claim, and the family is in desperate need of answers. News 5's Dwayne Moody reports.
It's a heartbreaking story of a mother of two young boys who, after a dump truck plowed through their home last December, has been living in an apartment for which a $450 payment is due in the next few days, but she's out of work and cannot provide. The truck was driven at the time by a driver from Bahadur Trucking and Baco Services. The company paid the rental for the first month, but has since been instructed not to pay as it is to be claimed by Judy Shish. Now, Shish and her family were left homeless following the traffic incident, and almost 2 months later, she's fighting to keep it together for her children.
Feel me sad, feel me like terrible because I passing this. I don't, like I say, it's not my fault to make my house get crashed in this way because this is the driver's fault, and they left me like so, and it's too hard. My kids don't feel comfortable there. I don't have a TV, only one small stove and one sofa, one small fridge, and that's it. My big boy, they say me, Mommy, when will we get the house back? I say, I don't know. I can tell him tomorrow because I don't have any answer. Yes.
It's that uncertain.
Anything that I just want my house back because it's not fair for me to go and rent house. We have to pay $450. I think a lot right here from this month coming because how I could get the money back.
Oscar Shish Jr., who lives next door, also had a portion of his fence broken in, and there was damage to a window. That was fixed, and the insurance company has compensated him for the cost he incurred. However, he remains concerned about his sister still being homeless, even though the insurance company had done its inspection and recorded the damages.
The other day when the insurance came, they told me that they were going to get my sister's house before Christmas. But it had passed already almost 2 months, and we haven't seen no progress, nothing, till the day of today. So I don't know, we already put all the papers that were asked, we gave them, but up to the day of today, we haven't seen no result.
No kind of report from them, no response from them as to when this is going to be realized?
The other day, about 2 days ago, I texted one of the guys from the insurance, and it seems that the man not even read my text. So I don't know what is happening.
Right now, I don't have answer. What happened, or he will bring me a house or nothing. I don't have any answer for that. So the class don't start already. I have 2 kids that he have to make online classes, and he can because I don't have phone, I don't have anything.
The Shish family has since sought legal advice as they have not heard anything from the insurance company.
We have an attorney already, but he already pushing papers and so, but as well, he said that he hasn't get no answer from the insurance. So the other day he told me that they are making a demand. So we will wait and see what will happen.
Dwayne Moody for News 5.
Still to come, a police officer loses her home and possessions in a weekend fire.
Are you trapped?
Career woman police officer Rachel Serrano and her family are homeless after a fire destroyed their home in San Ignacio last Thursday. Today, News 5 visited with Serrano, who since the disaster has been living in a room while her children are staying in Belize City and elsewhere in Cayo. News 5's Duane Moody reports.
Career woman police officer Rachel Serrano and her children once lived here on 3rd Street in San Ignacio Town, but sometime between 11:30 p.m. on January 21st and 1 o'clock the following morning, a fire broke inside the house's living room as they were in deep slumber. While they are lucky to be alive, they lost everything and the family escaped with only the clothes on their backs.
I was awakened by a loud bang on the door of my house and of my room door, and I quickly opened my room door, and my son was in front of me asking me what happened. He's telling me at the same time that my house is on fire. And I was like, and I look at the right and I saw smoke and fire. Smoke and fire. Mr. Moody, I ran out of the house. I ran out of the house quickly. When I ran out of the house, Mr. Moody, I remember my daughter, as she sleeps to the front. Her room is located to the front of my room, so I bolted back in the room, and the fire and the smoke is coming, Mr. Moody. I had decided that, you know what, I will die with my daughter. That's my daughter. I will die with her. So, in that same second, I heard a pot, somebody knocking and said, "Ma, where you going?" Yeah. I ran out. I had already inhaled smoke and all of that.
The single mother of two ran onto the road screaming for help. Her neighbors came out and the National Fire Service was called and managed to extinguish the fire, which Serrano says was due to a faulty electrical wire.
I ran out, I bawled, I shouted for help. I shouted for help because I was not concerned about saving the items. I was concerned about the fire getting out of order and causing other damages to other properties. And with the hollering that I was hollering, it was a quiet night, there's curfew, nobody is on the street. The neighbors came out, people came out, the fire was called, the fire department was called, they extinguished the fire and took it under control. And Mr. Moody, that fire, I watched my house burnt down, seeing my stuff, Mr. Moody. I worked very hard. I lost everything in my house, everything. People who knows me knows that I'm a hardworking woman. I have been in the police department for over 26 years, and I was given a privilege to get to own a house. When that privilege came, I stepped on it. So 2 years plus I'm living at this house.
Luckily, the house was insured, but the family has been left without a roof over their heads. Serrano says she and her children have been split up, but the police department, where she has been working for 26 years, will be helping her with a place to stay while she tries to rebuild and recover.
The Assistant Commissioner of Police, who spoke to my officer in charge, telling me that, the okay has been given for me to live in the apartment, in the quarters there in Benke. So I intend to move to Benke. I don't know for how long. I'm wearing clothes that is not mine, but hey, this is one of the things, it is challenging, it is hard, it is difficult, it is devastating. But I gotta do what I gotta do. I gotta be strong for my children. I'm the mother and father for my children. So I continue to support, I continue to ask the public for, whatever assistance they have to offer, I'm welcome.
Duane Moody for News 5.
Anyone who would like to assist Serrano can contact her at 614-6900 or make deposits at Atlantic Bank account number 211-780-857. Police are still looking for Javier Chuck. Chuck is accused of fatally stabbing his stepson, Walter Axel Gonzalez. The incident happened at the family's residence in San Martin, Pamupan on Sunday, January 17th. Chuck stabbed the teen when he attempted to intervene in an altercation between his mother and Chuck. Gonzalez was rushed to the Western Regional Hospital and later to the KHMH, where he died. Since then, Chuck has been on the run, eluding police. ACP Joseph Maivet says that investigators do not believe Chuck has crossed the border.
Still an ongoing investigation, and yes, indeed, he still remains on the run, and we are searching for him in relation to the investigation.
Do you have any active leads?
We have followed several active leads over the past few days. However, we've still not yet been able to catch up with him.
Is it believed that Chuck may have fled the country?
No, not at this time. We do not have any information supporting that theory.
Do you believe that he's still within the area?
Not exactly in the area. There were several other parts that we received information that he was sighted in other districts, and those were the leads that have been followed so far.
Is he alone on the run, or do you believe that his family members or relatives are assisting?
We know that he's alone.
Police have yet to identify the body of a man found decomposing 2 weekends ago on the Macau riverbank. The person is labeled as John Doe, and the only identifying clue that investigators have is a tattoo, a woman with shoulder-length hair. Forensics experts have managed to somewhat rehydrate the tattoo, and since the release of the image, a woman has visited the police station claiming that the man is her family member. However, investigators have yet to positively identify the body until the process is fully completed. ACP Maivet explained.
A woman from St. Matthew's village had come in based on the tattoo, but certain other things has got to be done, including DNA samples taken from those persons before we will release an identity to be that definitively of the person who went missing. According to her, on the 1st of November was the last time she saw that person.
After the break, Belize registers its support for Guyanese fishing vessels detained by Venezuela.
We all know the importance of running water
Visit our showroom or call 670-6710 to find out how Smart's corporate plan and PBX systems can benefit your business. Consultation is free.
On Thursday of last week, a Venezuelan Navy vessel detained 2 fishing vessels in Guyana's exclusive economic zone, the latest dispute in a long-running border conflict between the 2 South American nations. In recent years, the conflict has flared up as Guyana has started developing oil reserves near the disputed area. The Belizean government is registering its grave concern about this latest incident. A press release issued by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs states that the 12 Guyanese nationals and their vessels, the Lady Nayera and the Sea Wolf, were intercepted by the Venezuelan Navy, the Comandante Hugo Chavez GC-24, in Guyana's exclusive economic zone and subsequently detained at Port Guerilla. The Briceño administration is condemning this latest flagrant violation of Guyana's sovereignty and territorial integrity by Venezuela. Belize called for the immediate release of the illegally detained Guyanese nationals and their vessels and urged the government of Venezuela to respect international law and ensure a peaceful resolution of this incident. Prime Minister John Briceño commented on the matter.
We've always stood by the basic principle of self-determination. We also believe that that area has been declared a long time ago by the International Court of Justice that it is land that belongs to Guyana. And so we stand by Guyana on this one.
In other international news, hours after he became president of the United States, Joe Biden moved to recommit the United States to the Paris Agreement. Last year, the U.S. became the first country to withdraw formally from the internationally binding treaty to combat climate change. However, the U.S. is the second largest producer of greenhouse gases. With the U.S. committing to rejoin the climate agreement, they are expected to resubmit the emissions reduction target for 2030. Since 2015, 190 countries have ratified the agreement, each committing to its own nationally determined contribution, an emissions reduction target, and a plan to achieve it. But what does this mean for climate change and global emission targets in the context of small island developing states, the most vulnerable group of countries to climate change? CEO in the Ministry of Sustainable Development, Climate Change and Disaster Risk Reduction, Dr. Kenrick Williams, praises the U.S. decision, which he says can have positive implications for a country like Belize.
And we're lauding that decision by the U.S. government to rejoin the Paris Climate Agreement, because when you look at countries like Belize and the impacts from climate change, we stand to be impacted. And so we have a powerful country who can support mitigation and adaptation efforts of countries like Belize and other small island developing states. And so we're excited about the opportunities now that exist in terms of addressing issues of climate change, because in parallel with climate change, there's associated development and other challenges. And when you look at Belize, significant, maybe more than 40% of our population are coastal communities, and so they stand to be impacted by climate change. We see the impacts in Dangriga and Monkey River and others, and then we've seen the impacts from the recent storms and floods. And so we're able to go to the table through associations like AOSIS, the Association of these Small Island Developing States, and other regional and international mechanisms which we're a part of, to negotiate reductions, to negotiate finance and other climate resources, to be able then to address, again, adaptation as well as mitigating the impacts of climate change.
The Biden administration also announced that the United States is rejoining the World Health Organization in the fight against the deadly coronavirus. Keith Gilgis of the U.S. Embassy in Belize says that the COVID-19 pandemic is the #1 priority of the new U.S. administration, and they will be partnering with experts to win the battle.
We need the federal government to work with the states. We need the states to work with local governments. We need to work with our partners overseas. We need to work with multilateral organizations. We are in a race against time. So it's a competition. can we get enough of the vaccine out and enough people vaccinated before the more virulent versions of COVID spread? So everything we can do to buy time to give those vaccines a chance to take effect, to increase community immunity around countries around the world, in the United States in particular, because we have so many cases right now, is part of it. So saying we're going to work with WHO to be effective, absolutely. That is a priority of this administration, to rebuild those alliances, to rebuild those partnerships, to say we do it better when we do it together.
Gilgis took the opportunity to commend Belize on its efforts to contain and reduce the rate of infection of the novel coronavirus. On Monday, Minister of Health Michelle Shabat spoke of the quarantine regulations' effectiveness over the holidays. And Gilgis says that it is a great relief how well Belize has done.
I get briefed on the numbers here of active cases, of percent positives, of the tests that are done. You know, we have folks that call around to the hospitals to find out, you know, what sort of capacity issues they're having. And it's been a great relief how well Belize has done. You know, I worried about an uptick post-Christmas holiday, post-New Year's holiday. It didn't happen. And Belize's numbers are really good at this point. And I think Belize has to be commended for the great job it's done. And frankly, for the willingness of the people of Belize to say public health matters and we're going to do the right thing.
After the break, a Manatee story with a happy ending.
Other guys, Digi doesn't throttle customers down to 3G.
Which is why anyone would be a fool not to
International Customs Day was celebrated virtually this year amid the COVID-19 pandemic. January 26th is the day designated to honor customs officials and agencies for their function in taking care of the flow of goods across the world borders. But with the pandemic still raging, issues of effective service delivery and revenue collection are being looked at carefully by the Customs and Excise Department to improve efficiency where necessary, despite the restrictions caused by the widespread effect of the disease. News 5's Isani Caetano reports.
Customs, bolstering recovery, renewal and resilience for a sustainable supply chain. It's the theme of this year's World Customs Day, which is being dedicated to the united efforts of customs to come out of the coronavirus crisis and support people, businesses, by strengthening the global supply chain, reinforcing collaboration, harnessing technology, and putting people at the center of the transformation process.
As the COVID-19 pandemic that contributed to some unparalleled closure of our land, air, and sea ports of entries and exits, nationwide shutdown, curfew, and travel restrictions to protect the health of Belizeans. To our dismay, it disrupted the supply chain that proved to be detrimental to our economy. The sustainability of the supply chain is vital to a nation because trade is the engine that drives a local economy. Custom is uniquely positioned and mandated at the borders and ports of entries and exit and drive trade. Therefore, we play a key role in the economic growth and development of our country.
The Customs and Excise Department is expected to find strategic means of reducing the challenges related to revenue collection and implement sanitary, health, and trade measures to protect and secure its people, environment, and economy.
Customs continue to take up the responsibility to bolster recovery, renewal, and resiliency for a sustainable supply chain. We reinforce collaboration to drive the recovery process. Using a coordinated border management approach, the department provided a rapid and coordinated response with other government agencies at the national and international level and with the private sector for sustaining the supply chain.
This year, the focus is equally placed on developing and embracing technology to make the work of the department more efficient as the country looks towards economic recovery.
The journey of recovery has just begun, and the challenge is still before us. As we anticipate the introduction of the new customs management team that is on the horizon for 2021, optimism is embraced. New innovative ideas are expected to be ushered in. Newfound energy are anticipated to be revitalized, and the unity of one customs must be our theme. To our government agencies and stakeholders, the road to economic recovery includes our continuous partnership and obligations, one that would create an environment that will not impede the global supply chain, but would embrace technological processes and procedures for international trade.
Reporting for News 5, I am Isani Caetano.
The Clearwater Marine Aquarium Research Institute Belize rescued a manatee that was entangled in fishing gear. The manatee was first spotted dragging a boat bumper off the coast of Dangriga on January 18th. After a week of searching for the animal, it was located just north of the mouth of the City River on Monday. Manatee conservationist Jamal Galvez of the Clearwater Marine Aquarium Research Institute and a team successfully freed the female manatee. The rescuers discovered that the manatee had a large fishing hook lodged inside its mouth, as well as a wound on its right flipper. The team successfully removed the hook, cleaned and treated the wounds, and the manatee's injuries were evaluated and its health and biometrics were recorded. It measured 264 centimeters in length and was in good physical condition. The injuries were not life-threatening, so she was released in the immediate area where she was rescued. The manatee was pit tagged for future identification. And that's the news. Tonight's broadcast is available in both text and streaming video at channel5belize.com. You can also connect with us on our Facebook page at News 5 Live. I'm Marlene Cuellar. Thanks for joining us, and from all of us here at News 5, Please remember to wash your hands, keep your social distance, and stay safe. Good night.